An animated blonde with long hair kissed the girl. They were hiding behind the sheer bedroom curtain, as if they existed only in this world. The boy said 100 times that it would be better if they forgot everything, so he used magic to change their appearance so they couldn't remember the past. Not remembering Leticia Violet, this was a man clearly sick of his life. Ironically, that was what attracted her to him. He told her not to think about anything, because her husband left her for another woman. The girl could enjoy apathy and pain, but they didn't need to dwell on the past. After all, with this impeccable man, it was possible to forget everything. She didn't understand how it all happened, but she knew for sure. She liked feeling him embrace her. A neat girl with amethyst eyes and a green dress was quietly sipping tea when she suddenly received a divorce offer. Putting the cup down on the table, she didn't take him seriously and said it was a very bad joke on their wedding anniversary. But Esther Winchester stood firm, saying she had finally found true love, and that she didn't need him. He directly admitted that he wanted to be with someone else. Leticia, unable to bear it, exploded. How can he even say that? She doesn't remember how much money she spent helping him back then. Although she paid off the debt, it wasn't about him. The man should at least be grateful, because if she hadn't given him the money at that time, where would he be now without her help? The boy hinted that she shouldn't talk about what she didn't understand, since he had already paid the full investment amount. Albeit not on time, but still. She told him he had always been like this. Esther Winchester always tried to downplay it, as if he wasn't guilty of anything. It was precisely because he didn't pay her on time that his family fell, and because of him, her father was forced to make a very difficult decision. How can he say that? Money in aristocratic society doesn't matter, but if honor is lost, and status, then everything is over. So her father, the head of the Violet family, went bankrupt because he didn't pay the debt on time, and he decided to commit suicide to take responsibility for the debt. His father gave money to Astor because he is the husband of his beloved daughter. Then the girl admitted that she supposed the boy wanted to marry her, because if that wasn't what he wanted, in the first place, he wouldn't have asked for a divorce. The man stopped her, saying he didn't want to waste any more time with her and suggested they discuss monetary compensation. But she, bursting into tears, said there was no point in talking about money, because that wouldn't bring her father back. The blonde was just trying to show him how much of an idiot he was and spill all the bad things on him. What did he do to her? Suddenly, Astor slapped her right in the face. The girl staggered, tears welled up in her eyes, but she kept hearing accusations that she brings up this topic so often, even though everything was already in the past, and even her father would be tired of hearing so much about it once. He indifferently admitted that he was tired of her. He didn't care how overwhelmed Leticia was with emotions now. The boy didn't allow her to treat him like that. The brunette said that marriage to a girl suffocated him, like the daily harassment from debt collectors. He constantly got angry seeing her self-pitying facial expression. Astor didn't care at all that she thought he was the worst bastard in the world. Taking the ring off her finger and angrily throwing it onto the table, he casually announced they were getting a divorce. A man would also like to be happy. He would like to have a normal family, like everyone else, with the woman he loves. He also dreamed of a child who would be like him, but unfortunately, he cannot fulfill his dream. On that sunny day, the girl was sitting on a swing. The weather was beautiful. The green leaves shone under the sun, but despite the good scenery, her thoughts were filled with the hurtful words of her now ex-husband. She knew very well that she could not have children, as Astor himself pushed her down the stairs when she was little. Although not on purpose, but the blow was impressive. The boy apologized to Leticia for a long time. She said everything was fine, but deep down she probably felt offended. Exactly until the moment he promised to marry her. He swore and asked the girl to marry him so he could be indebted to her until the end of his days. The boy said he would always be there, and now he proposed to another to be his wife. She sat and cried, thinking about how he could do this. How did he choose Lyanka? Simply leaving his wife. When her mother-in-law interrupted her calm, asking if she had spoken to Astor, the girl started making excuses, but she was stopped and accused that it was her fault for not taking care of herself. Her husband's relatives were happy that they were divorcing and wished her well elsewhere, although they were not sure if there would be anyone who would accept such a flawed person. The woman asked her husband to also say a final word, and he, taking her small body in his huge palms, prepared to give her the last instruction. After scaring her terribly, the man approached and whispered in her ear that he knew how the girl tried to have a child. But not everything went well. Even if she tried, he then hinted to her, telling her that no matter how fast the chick ran, it still doesn't fly with the adults. Leticia's things had already been collected and loaded onto the carriage, and as a last favor, her ex-husband's mother called her a carriage, so she doesn't care where she goes, the main thing is to get out of here. This family hoped never to see each other again, so the girl left this beautiful, at first glance, blue-tiled castle, reflecting the sun's glare. The girl didn't realize if this was really happening to her, looking at her things. She understood that they knew everything and were waiting for her divorce. And that's not all. When she arrived here, she had many things. Leticia stood up, assessing the situation, when suddenly, out of nowhere, she was doused with ice water. The girl was completely soaked. She looked around for the cause of her troubles, and when she heard a familiar voice, she looked up and saw Olivia Winchester, Astor's younger sister. The violet eyes lit up with resentment and anger. This girl wondered if Leticia was okay, but the girl knew she was the one who poured the bucket of cold water. Looking at the charcoal-haired girl on the balcony, who mockingly counted how she personally helped her pack her things, she noticed a dress she was wearing. She recognized it as her dress, which her mother gave her as a welcome gift. But Olivia insisted that she was mistaken and that she always had that dress. Then, the girl admitted that, of course, she would like to chat more, but she was a bit busy because she needed to clean the bedroom for her new guest. Leticia didn't understand how they were already cleaning her room for another woman, because recently she lived there. It was already dark, but the girl was still sitting dejectedly near the castle gate, and she didn't understand why they did this to her. Recently, she was a member of the family, but in the blink of an eye, everyone suddenly started treating her as if she had never been one of them. She had to return to her Violet family estate. From afar it looks like a museum, but the nearby forest adds a refreshing atmosphere. And free, after learning how her daughter was doing, she was outraged that Astor had demanded a divorce on their wedding anniversary. The girl stood next to her mother, and, as if she had already gotten used to it, calmly listened to the criticism. The woman was convinced that after the head of the family left them, the least this boy could do was take care of her. Because the father wanted to help his daughter's husband, he invested in his business, which led him to a fatal decision. The mother, fanning herself, perfectly remembered the times when he considered her a bad stepmother. And now he dared to demand a divorce from her, but if it weren't for him, Graham wouldn't have died. Who would have thought that her sister would die of an illness? Then the woman asked if Leticia should die too, since she was so useless. These words already hurt the girl, but the mother suddenly burst into anger, and unable to contain her aggression, she approached her and asked why she had come here in the first place, and then stabbing her in the heart with a knife. I told her to get out of here, and I didn't even think about coming back. Of course, she didn't expect this to happen. Now she didn't even have anywhere to go. She was a fool, and she had lost not only her father but also her beloved man. Completely desperate, the poor girl thought it would be better to just throw herself into the river in this situation. She was already standing on the cliff, and looking down at the sparkling water, waves of foam crashed against the stones of the rocks, waving to the girl in the green dress to jump. Suddenly, two voices pulled her out of these uneasy feelings. A familiar male voice approached along with a female one directly to the cliff. Astor was definitely among them. Seeing his ex-wife, the man was surprised and admitted that he didn't expect to see her here. He looked at her with obvious disgust, as he came here with his new interest, wanting to spend a good time among the beautiful views of nature. Forest and river, descending to the river viewpoint, it was necessary to pass through a rather rugged clearing. And each time the boy warned the girl that she must walk carefully and cautiously, since it was slippery here, and he offered her help, which he hadn't done for his wife before, offering her his hand. When the girl saw Astor's new passion, Lyanka Snowwither, she was struck by her beauty. She looked like bubblegum ice cream, like tutti frutti candy. Her favorite colors were clearly pink and purple. They looked great with their bright and cheerful eyes. Thick lips. Looking at these two, Leticia didn't understand why he couldn't treat her the same way. Also be careful, pampered, and protected like the apple of his eye, to truly love until losing one's pulse. Lyanka approached almost to the end of the clearing, directly to the cliff. From here she could see the noisy river, but she wasn't interested in the water. She asked if the girl was okay and what she was doing here alone, as if she didn't know whose union she had destroyed. Touching the hands of the blonde in the green dress with a cute bow, she felt them cold, and she was very surprised, so she invited her for a walk along the riverbank. If she, of course, didn't mind, because she would like to discuss something with her. But Leticia proudly pulled her hand away, disappointing this sickeningly sweet girl. Covered in ruffles and bows, her purple hair disheveled by the sudden movement. And she herself looked at her empty hand. This girl with the tiara was clearly unhappy with this reaction, so she moved closer and whispered in her ear that it would be better for her, because she wanted to talk about what happened to her father before he died. She understood that Leticia would not expect such a turn of events and would become interested in the conversation. A Panama hat with trim decorated with roses, designed to protect from the sun. It now covered her predatory gaze and the shine of her transparent pink eyes. Leticia didn't quite understand what she wanted from her and why Ilyanka was talking about it. She was right, because she took the girl by surprise. Even her eyes darkened, and standing on the cliff, she was worried that she might fall. Like a sweet angel, she smiled upon noticing the terrifying fear of the girl opposite her, and suggested that she wouldn't want Aster to see her like this, so she should relax and just follow her. She should go somewhere so as not to be overheard. This brazen woman also asked not to get too close, because she wouldn't want to smell the pathetic odor. It was Lyenka who deliberately met a married man. How can you be so meddlesome and cowardly? They seemed to arrive, and a girl in a pink dress stopped her, saying this place was perfect. But she still had no idea why exactly this place would be ideal. As soon as she turned around, Leticia immediately slapped her for insulting her father's name and for other offensive words directed at her. After which, calmly, in a cold voice, she ordered them to tell her what they were so eager to discuss, to just say what she wanted and be done with it as soon as possible. Her reaction was incredibly strange and even a little crazy. Lyenka held her cheek, where the abrasion remained, and she burst out laughing, as if she had just been told a joke. And she called the girl funny, instead of getting angry. After a brief pause, Lyenka asked if the girl knew what a person must do before dying. The answer was simple: write a will, because this is a document that contains a person's last wish. Leticia didn't want to believe that her father drew up a will, but the girl opposite tried to prove the opposite, saying that he actually drew it up and indicated that he left the entire Violet estate to his daughter. But this was definitely not the most important question. If the deceased did not have time to make a will before his death, then who would benefit the most? It is quite logical that Jenny, this shameless stepmother who never perceived the girl as her own daughter and did not treat her kindly, this woman was always an obstacle, a discord in the family. The father perhaps understood, but did nothing or ran out of time. Jenny was a local aristocrat whom a distant relative introduced to her father. Unfortunately, her husband died shortly after marrying due to an illness, so she came to them with her small son. Her father simply took pity on her and decided to marry her. But if he really wrote a will, as Lyenka said, then she has absolutely no right to the Violet estate, because she is simply a terrible woman. Having taken a step, she again began to speculate whether, and this made her wonder if her father really made the decision to commit suicide on his own. And if her ex-husband really died of an illness. Jenny grew up in a small town, so it is not difficult to find and check those who knew her. When asked why she was telling this, the girl replied that she hated Jenny, because she had been trying to seduce Aster for a long time. But Leticia didn't believe a word of what she said. She seriously thought that no matter how bad a stepmother she would do it. Definitely didn't go up. After all, it was stupid and impossible not to notice her pathetic attempts to approach him. Lyenka admitted that she had another reason to tell everything and do it. With the bloodthirsty eyes of a predator who only wants bad things, she said she just felt sorry for her. Having said this, she immediately pulled out a golden dagger and stabbed it directly into Leticia's heart. The girl's pupils shrank, and her previously violet eyes faded. She never expected that this stupid walk with this girl would end like this for her. After being wounded and nearly dead, she forcefully pushed the girl towards a sharp cliff, thus sending her to the bottom of the river. Right with a dagger in her chest, her entire face was covered in blood, but she was still smiling. The last thing the girl heard was her disgusting voice, the voice of the one who first took her husband. And now, she also stabbed a sword in her heart and threw her off a cliff into the water. Finally, Lyenka admitted that she was very sorry to see her die, even without knowing anything. And after saying goodbye, she wished her to be reunited with her father. And so she landed abruptly and not softly in the water, sinking deeper and deeper. She had already forgotten the need to breathe and why, after all, blood was gushing from her chest, mixing with the water. Only a few bubbles slowly moved towards the surface, closer to the water surface. As her dress got wet and heavy, dragging the girl further and further towards the bottom. Just at that moment, Leticia realized that stupidity was breaking her heart. She thought she did everything in the name of her own happiness, but she forgot about her father. She forgot about her family. She even forgot about herself. Suddenly, someone's hands aggressively grabbed her and pressed their lips against hers, deepening the kiss and slowly giving her access to oxygen. She didn't quite understand who it was, but he made her stop crying and advised her not to open her mouth if she didn't want to drown. The girl forgot that at that moment, she was on the verge of death with a wound in her chest. This man with just one kiss drowned all her pain, both mental and moral. Then she thought about how kind he was, since he was saving her. Life upon waking up, Leticia found herself in an unfamiliar place. Everything around her was in soft blue tones, and she herself was lying on the pillow, as if she had just woken up, lying on the bed in her husband's castle, and everything was a terrible nightmare. But it wasn't just a dream, but a nightmare. Luckily, at least with a good ending, getting up from the bed, she realized that the wound in her chest had healed. And although it tingled a little, it was bandaged. A long-haired blonde man in a ruffled bell-sleeved shirt walked straight into her room. The boy was clearly happy that she woke up, because he was tired of shaking her while she constantly asked to hug while sleeping. Suddenly, in this boy, she recognized the hero of the Western Empire, the Cyanian, a member of the ruling land, and he confirmed her guesses. The girl asked him what he was doing here, but he was interested in knowing what exactly she was doing here, because she was the only daughter of Count Violet and was with the daughter of Marquis Snowither. And then, for some reason, she suddenly pushed her into the river. Leticia wanted to look at the wound and almost unbuttoned her shirt. But suddenly, the boy attacked her, and pressing her against the bed, he slowed down, saying that he could stop the bleeding, so she shouldn't open the wound, further embarrassing the girl. He began to lick her wounds, leaving a wet trail of kisses, when the second boy, Rangero Makashian, Sionian's advisor, burst into the room. He was not happy. The patient had woken up not long ago, and he was already bothering her. He apologized for the boy's strange behavior and asked if she was surprised to be in such an unusual place. This was a Westeros passenger ship. It was lands located opposite Northland, blessed by the gods, where the imperial land rules. Perhaps it is because of this that people with special abilities are born here. They say Sionian was blessed by the sun god. But then, why did someone like him decide to save her? They were visiting Northland, but Sion saw a girl in the river and decided to save her. They had been on the road for almost a week, and while she was unconscious, he treated her in such an interesting way. The boys sent a messenger, but a funeral is already taking place at the estate, because they told the messenger that Leset was depressed by the loss of her father, so she threw herself into the river. Understandably, Zion decided this was strange, because it didn't explain the wound on her chest. According to them, the stepmother was the last person the girl saw and saw nothing. Still, he admitted that it was about her husband's mistress, Lyanka Snowither. She was the same blue-haired one, and it seems the messenger saw her. He said she cried a lot at the funeral. Leset got angry at such news. They offered to return her to her husband, but he was most likely her accomplice. She immediately thought it would be better to drown, and then decided that they should die, and that she would make them pay 100 times more for what they had done. Zion liked what he heard, so he offered to help with revenge, which would make the villains long for death. If she does everything as he says, then it will be perfect revenge. The boy guaranteed that he would return wealth, honor, and life to her. Everything they took from her, but everything has a price. And Zion wanted Leticia Violet to remain dead. This is the price she will have to pay. His wish was justified by the fact that in the northern lands, there is an assassin who killed someone close to him. And to find him, a person who knows the place well is needed. Social life, and who knows how to extract information from people. That's why he decided to entrust this matter to Letiz. The boy will give her a new life and status. He will change her appearance using his power. The girl is no longer recognized by those from whom she suffers, with his powers as the sun god. It is possible to completely change her appearance. Although they were not close, Sion only saw her at the wedding. Then they barely spoke, so this was not enough to entrust him with such an important task. The boy remembers very well how he kissed her hand, and then gave her important advice. He advised her to immediately run away from Aster Winchester. That day was still winter, but the Winchesters decided to hold the wedding anyway, probably because Aster got irritated easily. And Saul, chosen from the west, arrived at the event, along with the second Prince of Northland, Monk Calyx. These are members of the ruling families who have been on the throne for more than 300 years. And one of them is also blessed. The bride certainly did not expect to see him in person. The Cyanian Psalmer Summerhaste has enough power to defeat demons and even heal people. Why did he agree to come here? They were here for her husband's mother, Queen Anne, Prince Calyx's mother, her childhood friend. It was very exciting to receive such valuable guests. Mother wanted to please everyone and was already thinking about cooking Western food. But she stopped in time. She shouldn't please so much, unless her relatives were so rude that they wouldn't support their only daughter's wedding. After all, anyway, when they get married, Leticia will also become their daughter. She was sure she could barely hold the bride's bouquet and was very nervous. How did my sister suggest asking Saul from the West to give a congratulatory speech so that guests couldn't speak ill of the wedding? Otherwise, their whispers were already annoying. Olivia walked straight to her sofa, loaded with good luck, trying to use her communication skills for the good of the family. But a moment later, the aggressive girl in the red dress returned with a refusal. Saul said he had already done more than enough when he arrived at the wedding, so the mother suggested that Aster try. Maybe he would succeed, but the boy refused and turning around, called him arrogant. Only after Leticia suggested they go and ask together did he agree, because it would be useful to improve the Winchesters' reputation. As soon as they approached, the prince, with a glass in his hand, smiled and called them lucky. The couple began to introduce themselves, expressing their great joy at the meeting. But suddenly, Sion burst out laughing. Did they really want to ask them to give a congratulatory speech again? Aster replied that if the guests listened to the congratulatory speech, then the family would no longer be considered low-level. After taking a sip of the drink, Saul admitted that he didn't think it would be enough to change the situation. And yet, do you really think His Majesty wants to give a speech for your poor family? The man said he had nothing else to give them, so he asked them to leave and not bother him anymore. The groom's gaze changed. He was humiliated right at his wedding. And by whom? Another man, clenching his lips, could barely restrain himself from being rude. Unable to restrain himself, the boy said it seemed they made the wrong decision when they called him. He turned around proudly and left. The girl wanted to stop him, but Aster sharply pushed her hand away, reminding her not to do that. He just walked away, leaving the bride alone. Even the boys on the sofa found it amusing. He didn't plan to be rejected like Olivia, so he composed himself and apologized for both of them, saying that it was an honor to host such guests, and he apologized for causing inconvenience with his selfish requests. The prince tried to explain to her that there was no need to apologize, but she ended her speech by asking him to enjoy the ceremony. When the blonde man himself stopped her, he wanted to finally give her some advice, hoping she would listen. He literally advised her to run away from here, because she would never be happy with this bastard. After hearing this, the girl just ran away and he considered her a fool. She didn't listen to his warning then, but most likely it will show how much the girl loved. Zion took the ring off her hand with his teeth and threw it on the ground. She couldn't believe this boy would return this love so much to her, and that she was here now, after almost dying, is like salt in the wound. The girl, remembering all the pain inflicted on her that day by her stepmother, her husband's relatives, and Aster himself, decided nevertheless to accept his offer because she wanted revenge on them. Then she stretched out her leg and told him to kiss the tip of her boot. She didn't quite understand why he would do that, but the boy explained that this is a custom in the Westeros Empire. You must kiss the foot of a ruling family member when swearing an oath to the empire, because this shows devotion and obedience to the head of the nation. It seems the girl heard something similar. The founder of the ruling family of Westeros was a demigod. He used his abilities to grant special blessings to people. After a while, this custom became an imperial tradition. Once she accepted the offer, she could never become Leticia Violet again. This didn't scare her at all, as she was a fool who endured terrible treatment towards herself until she was murdered by her husband's mistress. A fool who gave everything for the husband who cheated on her, the pathetic daughter who led her father to death. And now is a great opportunity to destroy all this. She bowed and kissed his boot, asking him to keep his promise to help her take revenge. Sion approached the girl, took her small face in his hands, and looked directly into her eyes. A kind of rune suddenly lit up on his hand. He touched the top of her head and told her that she would serve him from that moment until her death, and she would carry out his orders. Leticia was a little worried. A tear rolled down her cheek, She was afraid her face would be ruined, but she was still ready to change. She was sure that no matter what he ordered her to do, she could handle it. He told her to get rid of unnecessary thoughts, because unlike this greedy jerk who forced her to endure such terrible things, Sion only wishes her the best and will always be there, by her side, even if something doesn't work out. The boy would understand if she still doubted him, but he asked her never to underestimate herself again. Now Leticia Violet no longer exists. From now on she is Viscountess Canta. This beautiful obsidian-haired girl still retained her amethyst eyes and full lips. The transformation changed not only the outer layer, but also her inner part. From now on, her name is Rose Victoire, and she will live under this name, so not even her family recognizes her. She has dark hair, like Aster, and the lines on her face have become more expressive. Her eyes are brighter. Her face is different. She has changed a lot. Sion's assistant also agreed that the transformation was impressive. The lady looked like a beauty from famous paintings. The girl thanked His Highness, but he reassured her because he doesn't need gratitude. He needs her to be useful. He needs it so much that he asked her to try not to become dispensable to him. The boy didn't even know they knew each other, although they weren't close, but now they are on the same ship. So they cannot be considered strangers. He prepared the girl's image. The final touch was a necklace with blue stones. Having finished with the image, the man began to talk about her mission. From now on, the lady will play the role of the rising star of Cant, and she will also bear the name of Viscountess Rose Victoire. During the next year, she will need to receive a proper education, which means she will go to Cant. She will have to independently study the culture, accents, and feminine gestures. With sufficient skill, local women can become viscountesses and duchesses. It's not like in Northland, where entrenched customs do not allow women to inherit titles. So she couldn't, although she was an only daughter. It was a great opportunity to be part of Cant, considering she had always envied them. But she had never been there. She hadn't even left Northland. They speak the common language of the continent there, but they have a special accent. But they assured her that even 1 year is a short enough period of time. They will try to help so that no one suspects anything. A different person, appearance, a new status, great support. She will definitely repay all the kindness His Highness has done. And Rose's chest wound reopened. It seems that after a long time in the hot bath, blood circulation has increased. She was advised to go to His Highness, just in case. She might have a talent for embarrassing people, but upon closer inspection, she turns out to be a very kind person. This means she doesn't need to adapt to his mood or try to please him. His Highness only cares about how useful a person is. He doesn't expect to be treated like a leader, so there is no need to humble oneself before him. Isn't that wonderful? Zion opened the door with his shirt open, and as soon as the girl mentioned the wound, he no longer listened to her excuses, but immediately let her into the room. The wound took a long time to heal. Something must have been put on the blade. Naturally, it wasn't due to a lack of skill, as thanks to him she felt much better. As he approached, the man began to stroke Rose's head, saying that it was the owner's job to take care of the horse. In reality, he stroked her hair like a dog, so she couldn't help but wonder when was the last time someone stroked her like that. Perhaps her ex-husband noticed that she still regretted something left in the past, and he asked directly. The girl admitted that she did not give up everything of her own free will. Everything was taken away and destroyed from her, although she doesn't give the impression of a vengeful person. Perhaps because it seemed easy to find an approach to her, just right to leave a mark. The man had a question why wives in Northland are so attached to their husbands. In ancient times, when the husband died first, it was customary to bury the wife alive with him. Now everything is not so strict, but these are still conservative. Lands, Sion noticed that her husband was still able to proudly admit his infidelity. Male infidelity is not pride. It is something shameful, but to some extent tolerable if it does not interfere with procreation. With a cunning look, the boy suddenly turned to Rose. What will happen if a woman cheats on him? How does she feel about it? She calmly replied that in Northland, if a married woman is caught cheating, she is immediately sent back to her mother. And instead of a divorce, she is forced to pay a decent amount of alimony to her husband and to her relatives, children born from her. Adultery has no right to inheritance, so women are clearly at a disadvantage, and the boy was interested in this for a reason, because now he can do whatever he wants. Pressing her against the bed, he said that she had been kicked out, even though she hadn't cheated on him, and since she was dead now, there was no need to pay alimony. not to mention the fact that there were no offspring to claim the inheritance. It would be stupid to stay with someone worse than her ex-husband if she cheated on him. So this is a regression. He added that he is not such a bad match. As he drew the girl closer to him, she realized that he seemed to mean what he said when he said she would be useful to him. Before this, the girl was used to being treated like a thing. She was a doll for the Winchesters to make money. And for a store, she was a useless wife like a doll, but now she has been reborn. And she swore never to live like before. But in the end, isn't this an opportunity? Although it would cost. Rose suddenly jumped up and ran out of the room, without buttoning up her blue floral dress. Tears were running down her cheeks, and she wanted to quickly hide from prying eyes. The assistant ran into the room and immediately understood everything. Well, was it really necessary to tease her like that? She had been through a lot. It was worth feeling compassion for her, even though she herself ran away without listening. Why him? Even pretending that he wanted to invite her to become lovers. This is worse than a simple misunderstanding. He helped her put on her silk cloak suit again and told her that she could see how worried he was about the current situation. So maybe she should go and clarify things so that nothing interferes with his plans. That night the girl still couldn't fall asleep, so she tossed and turned in her bed for a long time, entangling the blanket. She kept dreaming of her husband's new mistress, who chased the girl with a dagger, saying that she had nowhere to run and that she wanted relief, so she had to give in. In this nightmare, she definitely lost. She was dragged deeper and deeper to the bottom, towards those people from her past life. They repeated a bunch of words that were unpleasant to her and extended their hands, trying to take her away. Rose raised her hands and suddenly Aster grabbed her. She asked for help, but he just said that no one would help her and let her go to the bottom, stabbing her heart with a dagger from behind. Blood flowed from her eyes instead of tears, and her pupils narrowed. She suddenly jumped out of bed, as if she had really been killed again. But it was all just a bad dream she wanted to forget as quickly as possible. So the girl went to the kitchen and found a bottle of alcohol there. Since it was hard for her to bear sobriety, she drank a little and felt better until a man's voice was heard from behind. It turned out to be Sion. He immediately took the bottle away from her, saying that drinking with deep wounds was stupid. Putting the drink back in place, he advised that if it hurts, it is better to go to him. Because how else can it be explained that there are no other painkillers here? The guy approached her, unbuttoned her nightgown, and seeing the completely blood-soaked bandage. He said it was only because she had been drinking. Immediately, he placed his hand with a shining rune on her chest, thus healing the wound. Having finished his work, he immediately heard the girl's apologies if she caused trouble with her presence. And finally, her gratitude. Rose was in the shadows, like a ghost, with only a small purple stain on her light dress. Her words about the inconvenience annoyed Sion, so he invited her to sit next to him. Because they hadn't finished what they started yet, as soon as the girl was close, he immediately started scolding her, forcing her to apologize for drinking to the point of losing her head. That's why she can't even play pranks on people. He suggested betrayal, because it is one of the revenge strategies if after a year of preparation for destiny, she returns to Northland, where women have a hard time, and the time may come when she needs his power. If he had decided to use the girl only to fulfill his whims, then, in the first place, he wouldn't have offered it to her. After such revelations, Rose felt uncomfortable and lowered her eyes to the floor. What was she thinking? A man like that would never desire her. She didn't even realize that she had misinterpreted His Highness's intentions, and she had also shown such a repulsive side of herself, so now she didn't even know what to say. Saul brought his part of the apology, but she didn't accept it, so he invited her to kiss those lips that pronounced the toast at the wedding. And then he would accept his silent request. Taken by surprise, the girl hesitated a little, but then remembered that she was willing to do anything for revenge, and with the thought that this was just a test to see if she could convincingly behave like his lover. That this wasn't all for real. She was so ashamed to do this that she asked him to close his eyes, but the boy refused, reminding her that she was already married and there should be no awkwardness. Rose kissed him in different places, as if deliberately hitting the wrong spot, teasing Shin and gently touching his lips several times. And when he noticed and asked what was wrong with her, she apologized because it had been a long time since she had done something like this. And she offered to try again, but the man replied that everything was fine and sent her to the guest room, saying that he accepted the apologies. Convinced that it was a test, the girl left, and the boy, having torn rather than unbuttoned his shirt, noticed that he was somehow heating up, when suddenly Rangero entered the room and clearly saw something he didn't expect. He said he wanted compensation for the moral damage he had just received and asked for it to be approved right there. But silencing him with just a look, Sion hissed angrily for him to get out of here. The next morning, Rose woke up hearing unfamiliar voices and went out to see what was happening. It seems something is wrong with the ship. Nothing important, just that the engines suddenly exploded. And most likely it won't be repaired soon. The boy suggested that, most likely, she was tired of being abandoned in the cabin. And the weather is nice today, so she can take a walk around the port. After all, she will have to leave for a year, so she will do it. I won't see Northland soon, so why not take a walk to say goodbye? She wondered why she would say goodbye to something. They told her to forget the past, the pain she had carried for so long, until the time for revenge came. Or the girl can stay with him and try on a couple of dresses. They should be perfect for such a beautiful lady. But her thoughts were occupied with worries about her own appearance. The situation she was in general, was incredible. The new face did not resemble the one she had not long ago. Suddenly, she admitted that she was wondering if her voice had changed along with her face. Rangero burst out laughing as soon as it occurred to him. Unfortunately, Sayan can only change her face and a couple of other things. The delicate peach and beige suit with a hat decorated with Victorian-style flowers suited her perfectly. And my lady looked beautiful. Rose already knew where to go, because she was born here. The seaport of Northland was located next to her house, so when she was a child, she used to come here with her father for his business. Since incidents related to gangs have become more frequent here lately, she decided to send escorts with her, just in case. Alexa Wolf, the soldier, known as the Swift Sword of Westeros, although the girl thought she was a man. The girl looked good, so she introduced herself to her, but then she was corrected, implying that now she was in Rose Victoire. After kissing the mistress's hand, the girl said that from now on she would be under her protection. Stepping onto the ground, the girl noticed a beautiful ship, as if she hadn't been on it all this time. It had a name that suited it, Platinum Celeste, the pride of Westeros. Then Leticia overheard a conversation between two women. They were talking about a ship, saying that only fools go on such a big ship. What's the use if most of the internal space is empty? Turning around, she recognized them as Olivia and Clarice. Astor's ship was right in front of them, and they couldn't even recognize it. The brazen girl suggested to her mother that if the family's affairs were going well, she should buy a better ship. Theirs was too small, and a family of such status should not travel on a proper ship. The woman replied that it wasn't a bad idea, and maybe they could even pay for it for the late Leticia. In the end, she was still useless. Leticia Violet remained useless even after death. Although Astaire was generous in marrying her, her mother still couldn't believe how the court wouldn't pay the insurance just because they suspected her husband had something to do with her death. It turns out that everything will go to Jenny, who doesn't know how to manage money, and if she takes it all, it will be a terrible waste. Olivia had already befriended Lyanka, so she knew that she was the only one who survived the Great Fire a year ago. So she is the only heir to the Snowither family. And after her death, she should bring great wealth. How dare they say that? She recently died, and they are already comparing her usefulness to another girl. The shrewd eyes of the swamp-haired girl found Rose, and she immediately approached to introduce herself, saying that it was nice to see foreigners here from time to time. But suddenly she froze, not understanding what was happening. The girl dared not say a word, she couldn't make any sound. Alexa immediately understood everything and decided to help, saying that it was nice to take a walk, but that it was time for them to return, so they headed to a quieter place. Feeling too vile, piercing gazes on their backs, the girls separated while sitting at a table in a restaurant. And Rose said that she knew these people before. They were her mother-in-law and sister-in-law, and she thanked the girl for her help, but she replied that it was just her job. She advised her to eat, because gaining or losing weight can change her appearance. In some cases, it can even change beyond recognition. When suddenly Astor appeared behind her, she choked upon hearing this voice. But Alexa calmed her down by telling her that he wouldn't recognize her, and that the more she panicked, the more attention she would attract. It turned out he came here to meet Vandal Bryson. This is his close friend. He even came to her wedding. They were about to leave in silence, when suddenly and involuntarily, they began to overhear their conversation. The friend disagreed with Astor's decision, because he couldn't do this to his deceased wife. But the boy clearly thought differently, excusing himself by saying that he was definitely not a moralist, and that they weren't as close as he thought. As soon as he realized that everything was serious with Lyanka, he knew what he had to do. And this girl was so afraid of being stuck in poverty that she clung to him. She even sincerely suspected that she threw herself into the river just to provoke a feeling of guilt. Aster didn't even take the insurance money so that the ghost wouldn't haunt him, because in his new future with Lyanka, he wouldn't need his damned money. Leticia thought that he rejected the money out of guilt, but the man betrayed her to the end. It would be too easy for him to divorce, and now they are wasting time praying for her soul. The boy at the next table, seeing the girl's state, couldn't stand it, and asked her if everything was all right with her. And no matter how much Alexa convinced him that everything was fine, Vandel insisted, because no man from Northland could ignore a woman's tears, and asked her to tell him if he could help in any way. The girl was suddenly calmed by the man who had just entered. He wiped away all her tears with one hand and, taking her chin, forced her to look him in the eyes. It was Zion. He was touched by her, because she constantly cries as soon as he leaves for a while. And what should he do with her? The man arrived very late, but said he would compensate her for everything. And hugging in Rose, he added that he would buy her whatever she wanted. The three of them walked along the pier. Enough time had passed to calm down, but tears still ran down the girl's cheeks. Not even her sun hat hid her moist eyes. The boy asked her if she was crying, because she still felt something for him. After her complete denial, he concluded that it was all a lie. But Leticia claimed it was true. Only childhood emotions and memories took hold of her. But she still couldn't believe she was crying over her ex-husband. She thought Sionian thought she was pathetic, but he just silently wiped away her tears, affectionately calling her a crybaby. He knew she was suffering, but still asked her to stop hiding her wounds, because he would rather bite his tongue than see her like this. It seems the girl needed a little enlightenment, so the man took her directly to the carriage. He wanted to show her something. At first, Rose didn't trust him much, so she hesitated whether it was worth it. But after careful consideration, she agreed and set off on the journey. Saul took the girl to the Winchester family cemetery. She didn't understand why, but she went ahead. The boy led her to the tombstone and asked her to read the name written on it. The phrase Leticia Violet Winchester escaped the girl's lips, and then Zion asked the assistant what the funeral customs in Northland were. Rangaro clearly replied that they usually bury their favorite things with the deceased. Favorite flowers, dresses, family photographs, or some things that represent the person. For example, a doll. Letitz continued to sit sadly on her own grave, and then a man approached her and asked her what she thought was in her coffin. Looking at the two withered daisies she held in her hand, she admitted that she didn't want to know this. But the man considered it necessary, so he ordered the servants to dig up the grave. The girl was horrified. This was too much even for them. Under the cheap coffin lid was a pile of garbage bags with a foul-smelling content. It was terrible how someone could fill a deceased relative's coffin with garbage. According to custom, things that characterize him are buried with the deceased. Sion asked her to look at it and asked if she missed that life. From what she heard and saw, Leticia fainted. The ground disappeared from under her feet. She was very weak and probably very shocked. Maybe he shouldn't have shown her all this, but she is stubborn and stupid. She will stand firm even if he warns her. And the revenge they seek is not a simple matter. His methods have always been effective, but he doesn't always choose the right moment. So as soon as the lady wakes up, he must apologize to her. The two hoped that nightmares would not torment her for long. The first thing the girl saw upon waking up was a beautiful chandelier, so she immediately realized that she was in Sionian's bedroom. Leticia wanted to get up, but he immediately ordered her to rest, because if she didn't recover from the scare, she could get sick. Unable to restrain herself, she suddenly began to wonder and reproach herself. What had she done wrong? Because she loved them with all her heart. She always tried for their sake. The girl really didn't want to lose this marriage after everything she had gone through. Past, she didn't know what they thought of her, but she knew that she definitely tried for them. And it turns out that initially they considered her useless. Approaching her bed, Sion knelt down and assured her that it was not her fault, because she had done everything she could. And she was sincere, but she simply chose the wrong person. Aster fled at the first problems in the relationship and attracted everyone to his side. He shouldn't have been trusted, but Letiz was blinded by her unconditional trust in him. The girl admitted that if she could, she would have committed suicide without Lyanka. She understood and admitted that her existence was a mistake. She shouldn't have been born. Seeing her tears, the boy suddenly realized. So this is what Rangero was talking about. This fragile woman is weakening, both mentally and physically. This is probably due to the shock therapy methods. But he will definitely heal all her wounds and take responsibility for healing her again. Taking her face in his hands, he explained to her that servants cannot be wolves and innocent people cannot be criminals. She was born to be like this, but Sion was willing to open her wounds to heal them. Wiping away her tears once more, he tucked her hair behind her ear and leaned closer to her, telling her that her actions were not wrong, but if she continues to cling to the past, then problems may arise because of this in her new life. The boy advised her not to cry over the painful past, because her ex-husband did not appreciate her love, and slowly took everything away from her. Carefully placing Leticia on the bed, the boy approached her and said that others should be responsible for their actions. So there is no need to blame yourself for a false sense of pity and past feelings. She did everything she could and was always sincere, so she should be proud of herself. After hearing his words, she stopped crying and the tears began to dry. Saul asked if her heart still hurt, and upon hearing a confused answer, he said he wouldn't call himself a man if he didn't help a suffering woman. This girl doesn't want her heart to hurt. He promised to make sure that she couldn't even think of her ex. Astor Winchester is a man she still couldn't stop thinking about. Even though she was nothing to him, Leticia hated herself every time she saw him, comparing and unconsciously repeating in her head. Although in reality, she should have hated him for what he did to her. But now the girl saw what she truly regretted, that she loved him, and that's right. After all, she should try only with those who love each other. In the morning, Leticia thanked him for what he did for her last night, and said she wouldn't allow this to happen again. That she wouldn't cry anymore. Maybe now it's not completely fine, but she is trying. So one day, she will become a useful tool for him. The girl asked not to get rid of her, and Zion just laughed, eagerly anticipating that Rose Victoire would do nothing but speak with confidence. He was sure she would like it. While getting dressed, the boy said while walking that upon arriving at the Cant Duchy, she would have to adhere to a strict schedule, and Rangero would have to arrange everything. When she put on her shirt, she asked him to tell her if she needed anything. Clearly embarrassed, she said that one flower would be enough. Saul was perplexed why flowers, but she explained that the thing is that one day a friend told her how after her first night with a man she received a beautiful bouquet. Leticia was so jealous of her and dreamed of receiving at least one flower. Turning around, the girl hurried away, leaving the man alone with his thoughts. She didn't stop surprising him. She soon arrived at the Duchy of Cant. She was happy about such a trip, but after a long walk, her legs started to hurt. She must have been captured by an unprecedented sight. After advising Alexa to rest, she herself headed to her room. But when she opened the door, she was very surprised. Right in the middle of her room, there was a flower garden. The place seemed to be sprinkled with various flowers such as lilacs, peonies, and spray roses. The smell spread in a second, and she could already smell these beautiful floral aromas. She wanted to cry, not only because of the beauty of the gifted flowers. She dreamed and asked for just one flower, and she never thought she would receive such a wonderful gift. In just 1 year, for the sake of Sionian, who gave her a whole spring instead of one flower, she will return as the ideal Rose Victoire. Rose sat thoughtfully in front of a cup of tea, looking at the newspaper where Astor appeared. She thought because even for those who offended others, time passed the same way. The girl moved to the Cant Duchy a year ago. During this whole time, they did not communicate with His Majesty. I wonder how he is doing. A red-haired boy abruptly pulled the girl out of her thoughts. He was wondering what she was thinking about. It was Marquis Edgar Bodwin. She thought he wouldn't be interested in her trivial thoughts. But the boy, hitting the table with his hand, argued the opposite. Hadn't she become a valuable member of the duchy this year? Bodwin is a family that talks a lot, widely known for the production of their liquor, and who taught her the customs, intonation, and gestures of the Cant Duchy are reliable allies of His Majesty Sionia. It was he who commissioned them to become the temporary family of Rose Victoire. The girl replied that she didn't mean that at all, and the boy was already angry. He remembered that soon she would have to prepare to return to Northland, and from now on, she would have to endure many difficulties. Quietly sipping tea, she realized that it was for this reason that she was finally reborn as Rose Victoire. But Edgar insisted. He, of course, did not know how difficult it would be for her after leaving here. But he didn't want to see how she sketched a smile with the same sad look she had on her first visit here. Calmly thanking him for his concern, She replied that she was no longer the person she was a year ago. And the boy suddenly asked her to stay, or at least think about it, probably realizing how presumptuous he sounded. Suddenly, a lady with intense red hair burst into the room and confidently advised the boy to go to the warehouse and take inventory, hinting to her, or rather telling her directly, to leave. It was Marai's Budwing, and she seriously didn't understand why Rose was sitting listening to all this nonsense. That's not what a girl from Kant should do. Then, with her hand on her heart, the girl began to talk about the expression of this place. Strike while the iron is hot. According to this expression, time is valuable, so it was her fault that he wasted it. Having praised Anne Rose, the girl pounced on her with hugs, congratulating her because now no one would think she was a foreigner. And all thanks to excellent teachers. She understood how difficult it was for her with such a student, so she was sincerely grateful to her new friend for all her efforts. Since she worked so hard, she deserved a reward. Marais handed her an envelope with her new biography. From that day on, Victoire was allied with Marquis Baldwin, so the girl could no longer wait to work with her. Literally lifting her ally, Rose hurried to hug him, of course. She was happy to hear so much thanks, but it seemed that this was not the time for emotions. Lord Rangaro suddenly entered the room. He was happy to see that she was well and also very grateful to the Baldwin family for taking such good care of her. It seems he didn't forget her, but he was busy arranging His Majesty's affairs. With burning eyes, the girl asked him why he had come here, to really see her successes over the year. But the boy took out the envelope and admitted that he had come to give her the next test. The girl's eyes suddenly lit up, because every new test brings her closer to meeting Shanian. They trained hard. Progress reports were extremely positive, so when she looked at the contents of the envelope, she saw an invitation to a banquet. In fact, it was an invitation to the annual banquet of Duke Sullivan. Every summer, he hosts a grand banquet at his estate, to which almost all the nobility of Kant are invited every year. To present her new identity to the public, there could not be a better opportunity. She will have the opportunity to impress and meet many aristocrats, but during her stay at the banquet, under no circumstances should anyone guess that she is actually a foreigner. Seonian himself assigned her this test. He believed in her, and she had to face it. Together with Marais, the girl thought about what she should wear. They knew the banquet lasts all day, but dark colors don't suit her. Maybe it's better to try light tones, or sky blue would suit her better. But her bright friend believed that something more impressive was needed, because this was her debut in society. Rose tried to argue that she had already been married, and that this was not a debut. But the girl assured that she had been reborn, and it definitely was. A debut. After all, she spent a long time learning to speak like a local, so, until she starts delving into her own head, she definitely won't make mistakes. But the problem is that she was too shy, and the girls in Kant are completely different. Mary understood that every person is different, but this is no reason to feel insecure. And if she tries, it will be more than enough. Besides, it was her husband and her family who offended her. Why should she be ashamed? She shouldn't consider herself a criminal. Rose thanked her friend, but still considered herself a criminal. She had forged identities and documents. Anyone caught helping in Rose Victoire would be convicted of fraud. But Marais still asked her to wear the white dress she recommended. And the girl, of course, agreed because she chose it. And you can also choose blue accessories for it. They will be waiting for you at the entrance tomorrow. It turns out that her aristocratic friend is also coming. How nice, it seems someone will be nearby. At night, the girl fell asleep, thinking that tomorrow would be that very day. She worried if everything would turn out well. Due to her excitement, she had strange dreams, regular nightmares. She was getting used to them. In them, Lyenka and her ex-husband, he expressed strong love, saying that he had waited a long time to find a person like her. But the wing girl supposedly worried that Leticia would get angry if she heard his words. Astor took this only as another joke, saying that he had never been happy with her. The girl sat up and thought when she could escape this painful hell, when she would forget them, stop having those stupid nightmares and live happily, or at least peacefully. When suddenly Seonian appeared in her dream, he told her that it was impossible to work with her. Her appearance had changed a lot. She no longer looked like a withered flower, as she used to be, but there was one thing that seemed strange to her. What attracted her most was the weakness of his heart. While he kissed her hands, the girl laughed, tickling him. Touching her cheek, she admitted that it was warm like the sun, and he, kissing the top of her head in response, compared it to tears. The smell of tears was damp, cold, sad, and bittersweet, like the smell of rain on a cold day. Leticia was much better now, but she needed enough rest to be ready tomorrow. It would be a difficult day. He himself didn't know how difficult it would be. Carrying her in his arms, he promised that he would be there until she woke up. Maybe it was only thanks to him that she didn't give up. She wanted to show him gratitude and prove her devotion. The girl also expressed her gratitude for the flowers. Seeing the ground sown with fragrant plants the color of her eyes, she won't forget them even after her death. But besides flowers, a man could give her much more. She just needs to keep coping with her new life. And Rose continued to sleep, but her mood was already better. All because of Seonian's appearance. It seems she really misses him. So much that she dreams of him hundreds of kilometers away. In the morning, while the girl was in a carriage to a banquet, she remembered today's dream. It was very interesting. She dreamed that His Majesty was here, and his presence did not irritate her. On the contrary, she liked it. A friend sitting opposite asked about her condition, if she was worried. In any case, she shouldn't be, because she was more than ready to show everyone the new and Rose Victoire. They finally arrived, and a cream-colored dress with ruffles was the first to get out of the carriage. Her obsidian hair was neatly combed and braided into a bun, but some strands still escaped the hairstyle. Edgar Bodwin immediately recognized her, telling her she looked like a princess and was surprised to see her like this. The girl was happy to hear that, because today she should stand out. Maurice suddenly ran up and shouted indignantly that the boy had never given her such compliments. He had dishonored her, but he objected that he had never seen anything worthy of a compliment before. A friend noticed that it seems the rest of the guests are starting to arrive, which means it's time to show off her flower in all its glory. The first guest approached the girl with fiery hair, but she decided to pretend she didn't recognize him. And she didn't remember him at all. It was Count Hayden. He wasn't entirely happy with the fact that Marise was pretending, to which the girl admitted that she knew about his wife, and that he was crazy about her, but still felt sorry for her. What if she kept walking behind her? The man should focus on his beloved. At that moment she appeared, Count Hayden's fiancée Charlene, a girl with a cute bob, a blue-eyed brunette with a blush on her cheeks. This girl immediately became interested in the friend sitting next to Marise. She wondered who was coming with her object of adoration. She immediately introduced her close friend, Countess and Rose Victoire. After her father's death, the girl was busy with family matters. So today is her official debut in society. No wonder Budwink is so beautiful next to her. She pleased everyone when she heard a familiar voice approaching. Olivia Winchester introduced herself with a malicious smile. Remembering that they had already met on the pier, Leticia only had orders on her mind. The main thing was not to tremble. She was no longer Violet. So after composing herself calmly, she confirmed that they had met on the piers of Northland. This vile girl tried to sprinkle everyone. After congratulating and Rose, she immediately turned to Mari's older brother. The boy also heard a lot about the Winchesters from Northland. This is a famous family that runs the white tea business, led by a store Winchester. They have been working there for a long time. Olivia was very surprised by the boy's words, as he knows her so well that she can definitely come to visit them and try the white tea. The boy and his sister had such stern expressions on their faces that the girl realized that Rangaro was right. She could no longer behave like a northern woman. She still wondered how the Winchesters managed to create such an effective and high-quality product. Maybe it was a substitute for lime water, which in Northland had already been forgotten. It wasn't very popular, because people in Northland didn't like sour things. Unfortunately, this scoundrel, it seemed to him that Edgar supposedly had a high opinion of her. He said that at first no one supported Esther's decisions when he proposed to export tea. The whole family thought that starting a new business with a previously unpopular product on the continent. It was crazy. This girl said that no one supported him, but he was persistent and moved no matter what. That's why everything turned out well for him. Only Leticia understood that Olivia was lying, because she was the one who supported him. She believed in him and gave him the initial capital. That's why his family's business even fell. But it turned out that the girl opposite, who offered to be friends, once used her as fertilizer for her prosperity and convenience. And Rose, who had radically changed, was no longer that fragile little girl. Memories of the cruelty of her loved ones remained scars on her heart. But now there was nothing left of her, and the time had come to wither them. Letis unexpectedly noticed a very beautiful bag made of a familiar material on this girl, with swamp hair, and expressed interest in it. Olivia said that she came with a fan, made of luxurious silk from history. And Rose thought that yes, it was quite beautiful since it is a special import. Such an expensive fabric can only be seen on expensive dresses. Then the girl admitted that these bags and fans were sewn from an old dress. When asked why she changed it, she replied that it was in memory of her deceased daughter-in-law. Every time I look at the bag and the fan reminds me of her, I would like to return to the time when Leticia lived. She really treats her like that, what a farce. In response, Rose shared that in Kant, there is a story about a man who lost his wife a long time ago. He missed her so much that he kept her room in the same condition for 40 years after his wife's death. It was the story of male Mito. No matter how many difficult years passed, the room remained in the same condition, as if someone still lived there. Lady Olivia shared that they also have similar stories, because the reluctance to lose loved ones is expressed the same way everywhere. The Countess objected. So, why did she tear up a valuable object of a deceased relative and make a bag out of it? Awkwardly waving her fan and laughing, she said that old things are forgot if you hang them in the closet, and she was afraid of forgetting them, but she would carry her bag and fan more often. The girl did this forever, to remember. What a liar she is. She actually did it because the dress didn't suit her. She has a build like Aster. They both have wide bones and long limbs. Leticia still remembers how she wore one of his dresses when she was a girl thrown out of the estate. But Olivia couldn't wear it, so she tore it into fabric. How could she do that to her dress? Her grandmother gave it to her. Suddenly, they asked her the question of how her daughter-in-law died, judging by her husband. She wasn't that old. The scoundrel started saying that Leticia was from a poor family, so they accepted her and gave her everything. But this was not enough. It seems she didn't love them as much as they loved her. Speaking of death, she almost burst into tears. And Rose stood up, realizing how brazen this family was. She did not want to die under any circumstances. They conspired and decided to kill her. No one even mourned her death. Everything was the exact opposite. The family was only happy to get rid of such a burden. They were even looking for new prophets, a new victim in the form of Lyanka. Seeing her friend's condition, Maris asked why this girl had come from Northland, if she had really come alone, just because she decided to visit the beautiful province of Kant. It was interesting, because it is not often that you see a single girl traveling to other provinces, especially because Northland is known for being conservative, even when it comes to noblewomen. They are famous for being narrow-minded and spreading rumors. But what will happen? They say that when they find out that she has done this, the road is completely empty. There would probably be rumors about problems in the family, about how she was allowed to go so far outside the principality. But Olivia justified it by saying that her mother wanted her daughter to travel and learn more about the world. She just cares a lot about her and loves her. But Rose clearly understood that Clarissa was the type of mother who paid attention to only one child, especially after Astor's affairs went uphill and he elevated the status of his family. She mainly used her daughter as a way to communicate with other clients about the family business. There is no way she would let her ire. Olivia must be hiding something. Duchess Sullivan appeared, expressing her joy at the meeting, and greeting everyone, including Marquis of Bodhunga and Lady Maris. She was happy to see them all at this event at the Sullivan estate, but she didn't understand why they weren't entering. Still, they decided to enter, because now there was an excuse. They also called Olivia, and Rose turned against her with hidden hatred. While the girl laughed carefree, Leticia didn't think that was the end. She could forget the victim, but the victim will never forget the threat. The girl will return all the pain they willingly caused her. It's only a matter of time. What a beautiful view and pleasant atmosphere. This event is definitely worth the most influential families in the area attending. Everything was perfect, like an elite banquet. Walking among the columns, she suddenly noticed the Duke's pet. Maybe she should get one when she returns to Northland, because before she couldn't have one because Aster was allergic. At the table, the girl ordered only tea with cream. It was still a little difficult for her to get used to the culture of excessive alcohol consumption. Edgar was suddenly approached by his friends. He had been very busy lately, so they hardly had a chance to see each other. They were all waiting for the moment when they could meet and have a drink. The boys were very happy to see that the beautiful Maris honored them with her presence. Everything suits her. She is as beautiful as coral. In this case, they would like to know the name of the beautiful lady sitting next to her at the table. Because she is beautiful, when you look at her for the first time, you might think for a moment that you are looking at a painting. The girl was introduced as the younger sister of one of the relatives. En Rose Victoire was beautiful. A boy even knew that the Victoire family was from Baudouin. Although he thought the last Marquis left no heirs, they were worried about the future of the Victoire family. They thought that the inheritance in the family would be chaotic. But it turned out that everything turned out great. In fact, no problems arose. They even preserved the family through generations. And the bluish-black hair is evidence of this. Her grandfather also had hair of this color. I think it's called crow's wing color. It seems En Rose was tired of the excitement and urgently needed to take a break. Suddenly, she heard a dialogue between the Count and his wife about how he lost the blue ring. He left it on the table for a minute, and suddenly it disappeared. He even searched the floor, but couldn't find it. The pattern is unique. It's engraved, so they can't sell it. Upon entering the house, the girl couldn't believe someone had gone this far. That someone could do such a thing. Opening the doors, En Rose found Olivia alone in the middle of the room, her red lips immediately puckering upon seeing someone else. She was clearly scared and shook herself abruptly, as if hiding something, trying to hide from her. But Rose calmly entered to powder her nose at the dressing table, and when she saw the girl, she decided to ask her what she thought of the Kantian tea parties, probably a little different from those in the north. Before sharing her opinion, she congratulated her by comparing her to a charming flower that had just bloomed, and then said that she didn't receive as much attention as she expected. She thought people would be intrigued by the foreigner at the party, especially the men, and interacting with local nobles would be much more interesting. But all the attention was directed towards Lady Maryse's family. The girl understood that sometimes it's exhausting to maintain a conversation for a long time. You just have to relax. What if she did something she shouldn't have done? Definitely, she didn't get rid of her bad habit. And the fact that Lady Charlene lost the ring is not a coincidence. She definitely hid something when she saw someone enter. So, Rose calmly took a precious turquoise hairpin out of her hair and put it on the table, drawing the attention of the girl next to her, and decided to rest a little. Seeing that Countess Victoire was asleep, Olivia immediately stole the hairpin. And hearing other people's voices, she took it and left the room. After a while, the rest of the aristocrats woke her up, saying that Lady Maryse was looking for her, and she almost fell asleep during the entire tea party. Approaching the dressing table, En Rose was horrified not to find her hairpin. She turned around, and as if for the first time, told the girls this with such bitterness and annoyance because it was very dear to her. It had sapphires, and it was the size of a palm. Leticia decided to say that she took it off right before falling asleep, because if she accused Olivia too soon, the situation could turn against her. The lady was advised to involve third parties, for example, the Duke of Sullivan, or her servants who promised to find her hairpin. These two girls will undoubtedly be ideal witnesses to her plan. When their conversation was interrupted by the ceremonial bell, it meant that a member of the royal family had arrived, or important guests. They must be receiving important guests, so they went to check it out. En Rose learned a long time ago from Maryse, when she was learning to act like a local, that when one of the tea party organizers rings the bell, guests must leave everything they can. They are doing and gather in one place. There was no one like that on the guest list that Rangero showed her, but the Duchess had already thanked everyone for attending her modest tea party. Today they had the honor of having an unexpected and prestigious guest. The girl expected the King of Cant, anyone, but not His Majesty Sionian Salmir. She couldn't believe that Saul's chosen one was here. Maybe he came to evaluate her, to see how she managed here. Their relationship is strictly based on the contract, and expecting anything more is foolish. So she needs to focus on the test, instead of thinking about useless things. But Lady Maryse immediately noticed how nervous Rose was after Sion's arrival. The girl had planned to make a scene about the lost hairpin, but now she thought she shouldn't do that when Saul was around, because she couldn't afford to do that. A mistake. They did this for her. Maryse immediately noticed that the brooch holding her hair was missing, and when she heard that someone might have taken it, she screamed in complete shock. Lady Charlene was also interested in this situation, because she definitely heard that it was there before she fell asleep. So someone definitely stole it. Who could do this? Who is so poor here as to steal other people's jewelry? The aristocrats of Cant would never do this. There must be another reason. Upon hearing this supposedly terrible news, Olivia immediately came running and asked what happened. This stupid girl still didn't realize that she herself had fallen into a trap. Rose began to recount how something strange happened. She remembered perfectly how she fell asleep while they were talking in that room. But when she woke up, her hairpin was gone. What could have happened? This vile girl was the center of attention, which means that she stole the hairpin. But there are aristocrats from other kingdoms capable of such a thing. But according to what the Countess said, who else could it be if not Lady Olivia? This girl has always loved the color blue. Most of the things that disappeared when she was his sister-in-law were of this color. Aquamarine jewelry, sky blue dresses, even shoes decorated with sapphires. She didn't choose this outfit on purpose to fall into a trap. It's just a nice coincidence. The girl still tried to justify herself. She said she remembered how the hairpin was on the table, but as soon as the Countess fell asleep, she finished her makeup and left. But the hairpin was on the table when she left. The girl asked if she was sure that no one else entered. The two witnessing ladies took this as an insult. They repeated that when they entered, the hairpin was already missing. And right at that moment, the Countess woke up and discovered it was missing. Is she really claiming that her hairpin was stolen? Their argument was interrupted by Rose, and together they discovered that approximately half an hour had passed between the moment she fell asleep and they entered. But the hairpin was already gone by that time, and she guaranteed it. Starting to press for pity, Olivia asked if the Countess really suspected that she had stolen the hairpin, assuring that it definitely wasn't her. The girl couldn't believe they were treating her with such cruelty. Lady Charlene intervened in the dialogue. She tried to defend her friend, saying that she wasn't that kind of person and had just arrived in Kant. So maybe it was a mistake. She asked to think about everything when they accused her not only of Countess Victoire's hairpin, but also of Lady Charlene's ring. And this was too much suspicion to be a coincidence, because it happened right when she was around. Olivia got angry and demanded to search her. In fact, the Duchess interrupted this spectacle and kindly asked if she could help in any way. They asked her to be a witness or search, so that everyone could see that the girl had nothing. She wanted to do this in another, more secluded place, where there were no men, but the girl didn't care. For her, it was important that everyone could see that she wasn't lying. The Duchess searched her bag and her dress, concluding that there was nothing there and that she was hiding nothing. But Rose asked for the right to search. Sullivan was not against it. Rose approached her and began to search, first checking inside her sleeves, then her chest. Although her décolletage was deep enough for everything to be clearly visible, she would have trouble if she openly touched her chest. So despite Olivia resisting, she sat down and asked her not to move. The girl immediately fell to the ground when a ring fell out from under the hem of her dress with a metallic click. It rolled right under Lady Charlene's feet. She picked it up and recognized the missing ring. Olivia was still trying to make excuses, but no one believed her. Because the ring simply disappeared as soon as she passed by, the girl was still trying to explain everything to her friend and asked her not to jump to hasty conclusions. But suddenly, they were interrupted by Rose. She had just noticed something else falling from under her skirt. This was one of the guest room brushes. The girl immediately began to get hysterical, justifying herself by saying that she wouldn't have stolen the brush. It means she stole something else. So the Duchess already caught her cheating and stealing. Getting nervous, she began to scream, waving her arms that she hadn't stolen anything. And if they know who her brother is, he is the very Astor Winchester from Northland. Why would she steal anything when he has a successful business? And she, an important member of the family. Sion appeared in the crowd. He suggested that this was a bad habit, because if he remembered correctly, then she abandoned her country for this very bad habit. Olivia still tried to justify herself, saying that it wasn't true, only that her parents suggested that she travel abroad. But the man corrected her by saying that he was sure it was an expulsion from the country for theft. After the girl's threat that he didn't dare speak to her like that, Rangero only started talking more. Didn't she also try to have an affair with someone else's husband? Olivia Winchester is the daughter of the Duke of Northland, who never married. Although she is almost 30 years old, and her hobbies are looking at paintings and horse racing. While watching the races, she met her son-in-law, the director of the Hippodrome, Duke of Hirschwin, Robin Armand, with whom she became involved in a scandal. And after this incident, she was ordered to leave the place indefinitely. Leticia suddenly remembered that she was sitting with a girl at a tea party and admitted that she didn't like men. She was just worried if he could pass on good traits to his heirs. Robin Armand came from another country and was the son of a male. He was lucky that the daughter of the Duke of Hirschwin, Lisa, chose him, and he made his way to success based only on his appearance. But like many men, he could not give up bad habits. The girl wasn't worried about the rumors about Robin. since her father said he would take care of everything if something happened. As she said, the Duke of Hirschwin loved his daughter very much, so much that he hated his son-in-law just because he was with her. Instead, he made sure that the girls he dated kept quiet. So for a while no one dared to mess with Robin, no matter what he did. Was the whole incident with the Hirschwin family really about this? How could she get involved in this? She obviously has a problem with wanting to obtain someone else's property. It's worth saying that this is a very unfortunate trait. The Duchess asked Olivia to go with her and her servants. She kept trying to justify herself to lie. This was not Northland, but she still became insolent. What an unpleasant fuss it caused, but they still didn't finish their meeting, because they had prepared a concert at the fountain for the guests to enjoy the melody. This will probably be enough, and they will talk about her hairpin later. She must think this is nonsense, because she could have bought a new one. But for her this hairpin is special, because His Majesty bought it with his own money, and it belongs to her by right, so she would like to get it back. Rangero suddenly approached her, and told her that His Majesty wanted to see her. Sion exuded a strict atmosphere. The boy wore her favorite ruffled shirt, but his eyes were a little cold. The boy stood up and instantly found himself by her side. Taking her chin, he wondered what she was thinking when she caused such a scene. As soon as her true identity was revealed, she would no longer be useful, and given this fact, what she did was more than hasty. And Rose had already started apologizing, assuring that she didn't want this to happen, that everything happened by itself, when he said that she was still much stronger than he thought. Without an accent, without signs of a past relationship, everything was impeccable. Her last act was quite dangerous, but this time he can turn a blind eye. At least she didn't look scared while facing the enemy. This must be why he wanted the tea party to be the first test. His Majesty simultaneously testing and Rose Victoire, and whether Leticia Violet could leave her past behind. What would he do if the girl had nothing? Although he was firmly sure that she would find at least one of the stolen jewels. But given the circumstances, this was a rather obvious result, given all the available evidence. It turned out that she had a much better plan than he thought. The girl would have caught her even if she had told the truth at that moment. Olivia didn't actually steal the brush. Rose did. She needed something to make sure she would. She wouldn't escape punishment, so she prepared in advance. Finally, she asked why Sionian helped her then. But he replied that if he saw a glass on the edge of a steel that was about to fall, he would let it fall and break. He really is like a grand master. She assumed this is exactly how he sees her, but she didn't want to believe it. Suddenly, lifting her and placing her on his lap, he said that she had that expression on her face again, an expression that showed that she missed him. Here, in his arms, she must be remembering the moment she cried at the bottom of the lake heartbroken. Leticia still admitted that she missed him, that she wanted to share the warmth of his body with him, that she was seeking comfort in his body after such a long separation. All this time, she couldn't stop thinking about how he probably even wanted to hear that the boy missed him too. She is so annoying, constantly pathetically craving attention, but gets scared when she gets it. Why would he miss her if this girl can be in his arms whenever she wants, even if he can't hug the woman he wants yet? Zion said she was overthinking and trying to distract her. He passionately bit her earlobe. He needed to fill her head with something else. The boy couldn't say that he missed her as much as she missed him, but he still missed her. Her eyes looked violet, and it was her pitiful attitude every time she faced difficulties that excited him. The girl should stop self-criticizing, as she still hasn't been able to get rid of the old habit. And since it was too difficult for her to get rid of it then, there was only one thing he could do for her. He would hug her until her mind went blank. He knew how much she missed his caresses and kisses. In the morning, Leticia couldn't understand why this keeps happening. His Majesty is a man who should have nothing to do with her, and not even touch her. She needs to stop thinking about it. She understands that the only thing connecting them is their agreement. And no matter how much she thinks, nothing will change. An excited Marissa ran into the room. She grabbed Rose's face, asking what was wrong with her, and asked her to be honest. She asked if Zion cursed her a lot yesterday, because he spent the whole night with her, because he locked her up upstairs so that she would think about her behavior. This girl asked to remember, she is always on his side. Even if His Majesty scolds Rose, she couldn't even believe that Olivia Winchester turned out to be such a person. She tried to hide her true nature. She was sweet and friendly, but it turned out that she was no longer that honest. Yesterday, Duchess Sullivan took her away. I wonder what they will do with her. In Kant, they are usually expelled from the country for this, but an ordinary thief won't get that much attention. According to the law, the thief must pay a fine 3 times the amount stolen. If she has to pay for the hairpin, the tassel, and Charlene's ring, it will be a decent amount. It turned out that Rose hadn't passed His Majesty's test yet. It wasn't over yet, and Rangaro was preparing for the next stage. The guy was already waiting downstairs. Having waited for the beautiful milady in a new robe, he immediately congratulated her, comparing her to a fresh lily. But it was time to move on to more serious matters. The man would like to give her something before telling her about the next test. After an all-night interrogation, Olivia Winchester admitted to committing the crime. She admitted stealing the hairpin and the ring, but did not admit to stealing the brush, which angered Duchess Sullivan when she was asked where she hid the hairpin. He only replied that she should be glad that it was washed before being returned. The man also handed her a suitcase, as a token of gratitude, its contents, or rather a bag, a scarf, and a fan. He addressed the girl. This was compensation for what happened. They wanted to offer her money upon seeing her expression, but she refused. This was enough. It meant a lot to her. She was used to having something constantly taken away from her, and now she couldn't believe that she was now getting her own things back. But Rangaro had something else for her. He handed her the envelope and asked her to open it. It contained an invitation to a lunar ball once a year. When the moon shines brightest, a masquerade ball is held by the sea. People hide their faces and dress the same so that everyone is equal, and they consider themselves worshippers of the sea goddess. This is an event where everyone dances, hoping that the wind and storm will stop. And next year, the sea will be clean. With their ships, usually people invited to this event know everything. Since the invitation to the ball was in her hands, it means that now she is truly considered a Kantian aristocrat. The conditions for passing the test were the same as the last time. Until the end of the ball, they do not allow anyone to understand that she is actually a foreigner. Since no one will see her face, people will focus on her speech and behavior. But she should definitely do a great job, like in the first test. By the way, His Majesty will move here, to the Bodwin house. For a while, there is no particular reason. At first, he was going to stay with the Duke of Sullivan, but suddenly changed his mind. He is quite a complex person, and Rose couldn't believe she would live in the same house with Sionian. She felt like she was constantly being evaluated, but suddenly he did this for her. Edgar entered the room at the master's call, as he wanted to talk to him about something important. For example, about the lunar ball. He and Marise had already received an invitation, but he still didn't know who he would go with. In which case, Rangaro jokingly offered to be his companion, but the boy immediately refused. 2 ladies returned from what looked like a rainy walk. This was noticeable by their umbrella and Mari's dissatisfied face. She asked her friend to stop losing weight because her dress no longer fit her. And then she started saying that since that morning, her brother had been hostile, probably because he had seen Mr. Rangaro. But Rose, not wanting to hear any more of this, silently kissed the girl and wished her a good night. For the lunar ball, the girl chose an elegant and delicate dress with lace and an open neckline. She looked like a freshly bloomed peony and reminded her of her wedding dress, but still, Marise recommended it. Looking at her outfit, she thought, and when Lionka marries Aster, they will have a wedding ceremony. Maybe even she will be happy with him, at least happier than she was. Without thinking that today she would fall asleep, Leticia started wandering at night through the castle as usual until she found a bottle and a glass of wine. With a note from Marise, mentally thanking her friend, she began to wash away her sorrow, until footsteps and a rude voice were heard behind her. Of course it was Zion. He agreed that the drink looked delicious, and she seemed never to have given up the habit of wandering at night. And drinking, it was probably a mistake to leak. To the familiar onologists, the man calmly told her to sit down and relax, but instead, she fell loudly to the floor. He had to pick her up. The girl felt a little nauseous, probably because she drank too much or because she hit her head. Saul asked her to take care of her face. How can she be so careless? She is revealing herself. So, what is the reason for so much zeal for alcohol? It's not enough to die once. She should have left the past behind, but it seems her body is outraged. Leticia confessed that she felt so happy to have met him when she almost died. The girl really tried to leave everything in the past, but the wounds from that life sometimes hurt. And she gets discouraged. That's why sometimes she needs a little help. But she has no intention of ruining everything by drinking alcohol. In fact, the girl is trying to convince herself not to do it. Shin had never been in such a situation, so he couldn't understand it. But he knows that in theory, unlike those who give up on such small things. Rose decided to keep going, so much so that even the strict Baldwin brothers were impressed, so he doesn't doubt her true intentions. Of course, it might sound pathetic on his part, but he really believed that even without supervision, she would do her best and prove her loyalty. It was time to go back to bed and leave, but the girl stopped the man by holding onto a piece of fabric. Leticia absolutely did not want to go to bed, to return to her boring room, realizing that nightmares probably awaited her there, reminiscences of the past, that she was trying so quickly to forget and put away in the back drawer. That's why she invited His Majesty to stay and have a drink with her. In the morning, they found themselves in the same bed again. The girl's hair was messy on the pillow as she lay on the boy's chest as if nothing had happened. And as soon as the girl woke up, he told her she could keep sleeping. Then he just thanked her for responding so generously to his discourtesy yesterday. Thanks to him, she slept peacefully for the first time in a long time. Jumping up abruptly, Zion put on his shirt. He wasn't a sleeping pill for her. And despite her attempts to change the situation and stop him, he got dressed and left with passive aggression. Although Rangero noticed her condition, he still asked what he was asked to prepare if he could continue with the plan. Edgar, with all his courtesy, tried to call the girl and make her his date for the ball. She almost accepted when Maris flew in from nowhere, reporting that Rose already had a date. The disappointed boy could only go one more time with his sister, wishing the beautiful girl good night. He headed to the carriage, and Rose didn't quite understand what would happen today. But still, she put on a mask hiding her identity. Her friend assured her that everything would go well for the girl as always. Everyone would love her. She asked him to wait for her in this place, because at any moment her partner would come. Standing by the column, the girl wondered who it would be. Maybe Mr. Rangero, because he should evaluate her, like last time. But it seems she was too lost in her thoughts and didn't notice how Sionian approached her directly. What is he doing here? Is he really her partner for tonight? Today's test seems so important that His Highness is present in person. He asked to take her hand, complimenting her dress, and finally they headed towards the entrance of the ball. Rose wondered if her delicate dress also caught his attention. He bluntly admitted yes, but there was no time for dialogue, or at least an answer. They went to the ball. The hall was luxurious, the atmosphere of an aristocratic ball, a fountain in the center of the hall. Dancing couples, expensive alcohol, delicious snacks. The hall was fascinating. It turned out that His Majesty doesn't drink alcohol, not even a little, not even a glass. Well, it's no wonder he doesn't understand why she drinks so much. Just by looking at her, it's clear that she only drinks very expensive wine. To be honest, Leticia, before meeting him, drank almost every day. She just couldn't stay sober. She immediately felt better, but over time, she began to suffer that the effects started to weaken. She says she drinks well, but yesterday she was in such a terrible state from just one bottle. But suddenly, the girl admitted, making the man laugh, that she thinks he intoxicates her much more than alcohol. So Saul, removing and putting down the glass, invited her to see if she danced as well as she spoke with a Kantian accent. The two began to move in a rhythmic dance, while everyone else watched. The couple really looked good, even good. No one could guess who they were. They were seen here for the first time. Maybe it was Lady Elizabeth. And the man gave the impression of being quite an influential person. When Rose started smiling with all her might, hearing these kind whispers, the man asked her why she was laughing and how she could do that. It was a test, but the girl replied that there was no reason not to smile, because she was dancing in a beautiful dress with a handsome man. Zion rated her dancing skills quite well and felt flattered by this, when suddenly he noticed Astor Winchester among the guests, not understanding at all what he was doing here. The boy suggested that she take a break from dancing and disperse for a while. The girl was standing calmly near the hall window when Astor suddenly ran up to her, and telling her that it was time for her to stop running from him, he snatched the mask from the girl. The boy immediately recognized her as Countess Victoire, and he was very confused. Meanwhile, the girl thought this could be His Majesty. He can change his appearance with Saul's blessing, and he has already done so before her eyes. So you need to stay calm, and everything will be fine for her. She said she didn't know who he was, and asked him to leave her near. The man returned the mask to her, and apologizing, explained that he was mistaken. It seems he forgot that they once met at the port. Although Astor now has Lyanka, they are engaged, so he doesn't need to remember noblewomen. The melody of a waltz began to play, and Winchester asked her to accept his invitation to dance as an apology. He would like to explain the reason if possible, if this is also a test from His Majesty. Then it seems to be too cruel. Spinning and rose during the dance, he praised her, saying that she was an excellent dancer, and that he once knew a girl who danced just as well. Apparently, he mistook her for her. Suddenly, the man bluntly admitted. To be honest, it seemed to him that she looked very much like his ex-wife, but there was nothing similar between them, except for the color of her eyes, so he noticed that the lady was not very happy to hear this from a man. Astor said that she was not a beauty, and in general was not a charming lady, and sophisticated, so he doesn't know why he mistook the girl for her. He wondered why she didn't ask about him, but everything was clear. She was a foreigner, and she didn't know him. It was evident from her accent, and she must be from Northland. Family circumstances brought him here. He must have been dealing with the case with Olivia, not realizing that the girl he was dancing with had something to do with it. The boy wanted to know her name, but it's not the charm of a masquerade ball not to know the identities of other guests. So, why don't they leave each other as a pleasant memory of the lunar ball? But he started making excuses, because he wasn't asking for a name for unholy reasons, and he was engaged. So how could he do this? Probably his wife, who managed to convince him to remarry after a failed marriage. She was very good. Luckily, after meeting her, my eyes and his opened completely. The man admitted that, from the first meeting, he felt it was true love. Then the girl suggested that this would probably greatly annoy his ex-wife, and ended the dance. This should be enough to pass the test. Unfortunately, this guy in the black mask was not going to give up. He stopped her again, asking for help regarding the girlfriend they were talking about. The boy continued to run after her, asking her to stop, because he needed her help. The point is that his girlfriend will soon visit Kant. He needs to leave on business. His presence at today's ball is also part of these matters. Judging by the atmosphere, Kant is not very different from her homeland, but she is still worried about her girlfriend. Since she is a very kind person, he doesn't want to leave her alone in a strange place. The girl suggested that he really wanted her to befriend her, but he couldn't expect this. They didn't know each other, but since she was from Kant, he would like to ask her for advice. And while Lyanka was here, she would need someone to act as a guide. He would like it if possible, she recommended someone for the position. But Rose just laughed. Her girlfriend must be very young. She must be 6 years old to hire a babysitter. Astor started to explain. His love is already an adult, but she is pure and naive, and not very familiar with how the world works. That's why he just wants someone to look after her. It still seemed quite strange to the girl that an adult man needed someone to accompany him. She must have already caused a lot of trouble. The man got a little angry and bravely said that he was just worried about her, because it is very easy to make a mistake when you are not familiar with customs and the culture of another state. Rose replied that it was not difficult if one was careful, and asked him if he had heard of a thief from another state. Carter is famous for trade, so theft here is a serious crime. What kind of careless foreigner would steal someone's things? Not even a 6-year-old child would dare to do such a thing here. This boy insisted on asking for an answer to his request, and then she suggested looking at Edgar, a boy with beautiful red hair, healthy skin, and large green eyes. He is a member of one of the oldest families in Kant, the Bodvingovs. He has a sister, so he knows how to communicate with women. She was sure that he would take excellent care of the girlfriend, but apparently Astor didn't like this. He got nervous and added that he understood all the advantages, but a man as a friend was too much for him. But what is wrong with that? What's the problem? Because it's best if they become friends. Everything is as he wanted. Although if this boy is from Northland, then everything is clear. Because the people there are conservative, but not much. What about that girl in red? She is Mary's Budwing, the sister of that young man. The boy wanted to ask why they didn't recommend her immediately, but after seeing her slap some insolent person, he seems to have understood everything. It was difficult to advise someone immediately, because in Kant, it is not necessary to look after someone often. The residents of this country are used to taking care of themselves when they grow up. With a proud look, Rose had already turned away and was about to leave. But Astor asked to wait. He stuck to her like a bath leaf. The boy said that he didn't know a better candidate than her, and he wouldn't have done it. The audacity to ask her to be with her all the time, but at least a little when she arrives. After he promised to thank the girl, she seemed to have no other choice. She smiled and agreed. Only then did the boy bow and leave. He doesn't even know who she is, but he wants Lyanka to look after her. She does everything he wants. In the light of the moonlight, Leticia sat sadly on a stone by the sea, constantly wiping tears from her face, and she thought, why before trembling in a rhinestone at the mere sight of her ex-husband? Maybe she should have done it. She refused him. No, this will probably be her cornerstone to sweep away. A gray cat, the same one she had seen at that event at Duke Sullivan's, carefully ran over the sand on 4 paws towards her. The fluffy animal began to rub and purr, thus lifting the girl's spirits. The girl felt much better, and that's what she thanked him for with a kiss. Of course, lipstick was imprinted on his fur, and as soon as this happened, he immediately fled towards the palace, apparently embarrassed. After a while, this kitten was already in His Majesty's room and scratching sharply at the door. He attracted his attention. It was noticeable that he was already irritating Saul. But Rangaro didn't understand how one could be so rude to such a competent subordinate. It turned out that this beautiful cat was him, and the man could transform into a human at any time. Wiping away the trace of the kiss, he said that his usual job was one thing, but espionage was a completely different matter, so he at least wanted to be nice for now. With good reason, Sion assumed that his beloved subordinate was crying again, that she was suffering in vain again. Suddenly, the assistant reported that the young lady had perfectly managed the cant dances, and when Aster Winchester appeared, she didn't even blink, and also excited her opponent. The next morning, Rose entered the room when a man was called. When he entered, she saw him and the usual breakfast on the table, and she didn't understand at all why he got up so early. Did he really want to talk about it? What happened at yesterday's ball, or maybe about the test results? But no. Pricking and putting another piece of food in his mouth, Sionian abruptly asked who the girl preferred, cats or dogs. She thought this was just another test, and answered easily by choosing cats. The guy got scared and left the room. It's incredible. If he didn't mean any of that, then why was he acting like that? Seeing a maid nearby, Rose asked how much time was left before the first ship arrived at the port, and she received the answer that if she got into the carriage immediately after breakfast, she would arrive on time. That's exactly what she did, and after a very short time, she was already standing at the port, looking at the ship, waiting for Linka to set sail. The ship had already arrived. People were rushing off in different directions, but the girl didn't see anyone familiar. So she asked the passengers where Aster's wife had gone and if they had seen her, and suddenly, they informed her that she had canceled the trip right before departure. Aristocrats, of course, are fickle, but it was impossible to believe that Lyanka hadn't arrived. And it wasn't known when she would arrive. With these thoughts, Rose suddenly noticed a boy in the distance. It seems this is the butler of the Snowy There family, and his name is Michel. What is he doing here without his mistress? Without thinking twice, she decided to follow him so she could find out the real reason. Fortunately, this was the Marquis's territory, so if she followed him she wouldn't raise suspicion. After locating the boy, she found him in a cafe, nervously waiting for someone, and looking closely around him. He didn't even order anything from the menu. And Rose ordered the same dessert as last time and sat down, hoping no one would notice that the waitress was already bringing the food when a loud scream was heard. Without fully hiding, Olivia was screaming at the top of her lungs at that table. She was dissatisfied and said, breaking into a scream, that according to the plan, he should have come with Lyanka because he promised her. So why did he do it? He came here alone, but Olivia should be in custody after what happened at the tea party. What is she doing here next to Lyanka's maid? The boy made excuses. The thing is, my lady couldn't come due to a sudden matter, but she can tell you everything. The boy will try to do his best on behalf of his mom. Mitchell said that it's not easy for Duke Karl Harshman to deal with such a situation. It seems they want to meet Robin, but no matter how busy the Duke is with his own affairs. Why can't he bring him quickly, maybe? He's just making excuses. He says he's busy. It is known that Lord Robin is very extravagant, so he doesn't even trust the Duke enough. So it will be difficult to convince him to go to another country without a good reason. Olivia, sitting opposite, was screaming and trying to blackmail, or she pitied herself through tears, hoping that Lyanka would understand the current situation, because she couldn't wait any longer. Everything was getting more complicated. After all, she was his brother, engaged, and the girl couldn't help but think that he is in a similar situation with her. While eating delicious sweets, Rose listened to them and guessed that Olivia probably wouldn't admit that the relationship with Lyanka was adultery. And the rest was true. The girl was going crazy over her last encounter with Robin. She missed him very much. Couldn't she really see him just once? It seems that somehow she stayed in Kant to meet him, probably without Aster's consent. But Olivia will definitely win. Don't leave it like that. If they don't give him what he wants, then she will tell everyone everything that Lyanka is hiding now. Suddenly, Michelle admitted that Robin had already been offered many options, so if he still felt something for her, he would have returned a long time ago, and if Lord Robin had wanted to cooperate, he would have been here. Unable to bear it, this girl stood up and hit the table and shouted that she couldn't do that, because when leaving, when they said goodbye in front of the house, he said that he would definitely come with her. But he didn't even try to contact. They were in Kant, in another country, she doesn't even know where he is. But he didn't try to find out. But Olivia still couldn't believe it. She thought it was definitely because of Lord Harshman. She is sure that Robin wants to see her. She knows for sure that he would come immediately if he could. She just needs to help him. Lord Lalisa Harshman's wife recently gave birth to a child, and surprisingly it turned out that he was a wonderful father. As soon as his daughter was born, he gave up his adventures with unknown women and stopped visiting all adult entertainment establishments. Previously, Lord Robin used to frequent such establishments twice a week. And with her, they even heard that he was afraid that his karma would affect his daughter. So he made a large donation to the church to atone for his sins, which is why it has been difficult to contact him since then. It was a punch in the stomach. It began to seem to her that everyone around her considered her pathetic, because it was better to die than to live like this. He said he was going to divorce her. He said he would marry her. But now Olivia needed proof. Only then will he give in. And if he lies to her or doesn't provide them, she should prepare for punishment. Seeing the girl leaving in a hurry, Rose thought, it's a pity she couldn't find out anything about Lyanka. Maybe she would have to wait for another opportunity, and she was about to leave, when suddenly someone approached from behind and pulled her chair back. It was Michelle. He asked her if by chance she had walked with him from the port, of course. He was not against such a charming beauty chasing him, but this time it was not worth it. Turning slightly, and Rose explained that it seemed she had misunderstood everything, and she was ashamed that he thought she was following him. In fact, there was a direct path from the port, so it was natural for them to go the same way, same direction, and it seems he was mistaken. But the boy continued to assure. He definitely recorded on video how she watched him while buying this huge hat. The girl covered her face and sat nearby to listen carefully to the conversation. She gave a brief explanation. She just heard noise from their table and became interested in what happened. But if they wanted no one to hear them, then they shouldn't have made so much noise. She stood up abruptly and almost left. This strange boy caught up with her. He turned her face by the chin and told her that she was quite strange and suspicious. It was hard to realize, but he was sure that something was wrong with her. In general, out of nowhere, Sionian suddenly appeared and took his beloved by the waist from this stranger. He apologized for making the girl wait. They barely left for a while. They almost tried to steal her. Looking directly into the man's eyes, Rose admitted that she even liked waiting for him. She had exactly the same expression on her face as always when she said or did something truly sincere. When he opened his soul, and one could be drowned exactly the same way as in his amethyst eyes. As he approached aggressively, but moderately to her to fake a kiss in front of the boy. She said that she missed him too. Zion hugged her tightly against himself, not only demonstrating something to that scoundrel, he wanted to feel her in his hands, to feel that she belonged only to him. Only royal couples can do this, but they weren't. They are only partners in a deal, according to Bara. He must have been angrier at the girl than he seemed at first glance. He warned that this boy was dangerous and should not come near. He had a strange expression on his face, as if he knew something. Apparently, Saul felt the danger threatening from the strangers, and he was not kidding. The man was sure that this stranger felt the energy emanating from the wound in his chest. It causes him a very unpleasant sensation that even Sionian magic cannot hide, and only those associated with her know about it. This means that he might be involved in her death, but why would he do it? Lyanka had a motive, because she wanted to be with Aster, but he was just a butler, a subordinate of the woman who killed her, left Northland and came all the way. This way, at least this issue will not have to be postponed any longer. There was an urgent need to leave Kant. Even though she didn't know the results of the second test yet, the boy replied that Rose had already passed it a long time ago. They met at the end of the ball. With hope in her eyes, the girl asked if she would have the chance to say goodbye to Morris and Edgar Bodvin, because they taught her a lot and always helped her. They explained to her what it was like to be a real girl. The divine Seonian gave her only 3 weeks, but this was already enough for the girl to smile and constantly thank him. Taking her hand, she didn't realize that for him all this was nothing. The main thing in this case was her safety. Only 3 weeks were too short for Marais. She became very fond of her friend, although she understood that one day she would leave, and Encant was just preparing for her revenge. If it weren't for the long time before His Majesty, she would do it. They have definitely refused. The girl even empathized with Rose, and since she also had problems with her family, she almost lost the family fortune because of her aunt. In the end, he turned out to be a cunning swindler. She used foreign bank certificates and forged letters from her mother to deceive. If it weren't for Saul, they would have handed her control of the family, but they were too young to catch her in this. His Highness was able to prove that she faked everything and took care of Edgar until he couldn't live alone. So there is no need to be angry about her friend. They will definitely keep an eye on her. And it will be better. For her, Leticia has been through a lot, so she seems much older than she is. But she still looks like a girl when she forgets everything and smiles sincerely. The boy sitting opposite him described her and compared her to a moonflower. Marais immediately noticed that something was wrong, so she threatened that if he starts to feel anything indecent towards her, even if he doesn't think so, because she shouldn't be dating. A fox like him, a man like that, will only hurt her. Then the boy asked what the girl thought about His Highness's plan, about the people involved. Like in Rose, Marais only said that everything was going well, but it was worth asking not her, but Seonian himself. In response, the girl asked him what he thought, whether he would consider her a common person and running, or if she was just another tool, another toy that once used could be discarded. 2 girls traveled in a carriage to the next event, which they were so used to during this time. But Marais was going as if to a funeral and not to a ball. She hadn't had time to get tired of her yet. In the presence of my friend, and she didn't want her to go to Northland, the girl would have stayed. I'm glad she's staying here for 40 years. They wondered why the party organizer changed his mind about the theme of the event. Initially, it was supposed to be a ball, but in the end, it turned into a wine tasting. They are presenting a new product called moon wine, and Marais certainly wasn't happy at all. It should have tasted like mooncake, and she doesn't like it, but she has to pretend to be delighted, because there are many people there, and she is a famous businesswoman. There is nothing to do. In Cant, money matters, not origin. Capitalism rules here, so theft is considered a serious crime. Olivia shouldn't have come to Cant with such confidence. One step ahead of her revenge. Lyanka Snoider, ex-in-laws, as well as a store Winchester. The girl couldn't wait any longer to return to Northland and start taking revenge. She was ashamed in front of her friends. But this desire is stronger than the bitterness of parting. But today she promised her new friend to be with her, to be in joy and happiness, and to properly celebrate their friendship at this ball, to finally relax and rest. Despite the constant thoughts of the long-awaited revenge, this event began to gain momentum exactly when Edgar Baldwin invited her to dance. And the girl gladly accepted, as there was still room in the hall. They were both happy to dance together if he had invited Rose even earlier. It was as if the girl had returned to a time when she was not yet married, exchanging flirtatious remarks with strangers, laughing at stupid things. How long has it been since she felt all this? When suddenly she bumped into something small and turned around to find a disdainfully cute girl, short in stature and with purple hair next to her. It was Lyanka Snowither, although the girl promised herself and her friend to just have fun tonight and forget the desire for revenge. But her own enemy helped her meet him in advance, and she would definitely regret it, because Leticia knew exactly what was going on, hidden behind this mask of a kind and helpless girl. After putting on the most feigned and sweet eyes in the world, this girl began to apologize. Rose admitted that it was the first time she had seen someone like this in Cant, and asked her to be careful. Lyanka suddenly noticed a stain on the lady's dress. She began to apologize and ask her to come with her. The girl barely got her hand out of the sticky palms, sticky from feigned excitement, and said that everything was fine. The neighboring couples were already looking at them and asking them to move away, because if they stayed like this, they would interfere with everyone else's. Dance the girl kept asking her not to leave and to wait, but in Rose composed herself. She turned around and left. Without understanding what she was doing here, this was also a test, but she was told that everything was over. She already had to deal with Aster and Olivia, so there was no need to drag Lyanka in too. Besides, Seonian himself said to stay away from her and his butler. Interestingly, Michelle and Aster are also somewhere here. The girl looked around, but couldn't find anyone among the crowd of dancers. But suddenly she saw him, Karl Harshman, among the unknown faces, looking at his gold watch. And then, seeing her, he sharply called her, beckoning her with one finger, and tried to ask her something. Rose calmly explained that it was rude to communicate so informally with a lady. At least here in Kant, it seems she is not local. In Northland, the status of men is much higher than that of women. Unlike in this country, for such a powerful man, a woman is just a small insect for fun. But he is not like most older men from Northland. He believed that if it is like this here, then he will have to follow customs. He bowed and then apologized for his rudeness. He seemed to admit his mistakes. This man introduced himself as Karl Harshman and told her that he had come from afar. Then it turned out that she was right. He didn't know the local customs, so he asked her forgiveness if he made mistakes. She calmly thanked him for his apologies and introduced herself in response as Countess Victoire, or simply Rose, and then she heard that he was looking for company of people, or rather, he was looking for a girl similar to her, but her hair was blue, dyed, and her eyes were pink. It seems he was looking for Lyanka. From what she heard, he must be talking about Lyanka bribing his son. Probably she did it to get Olivia out. But what to say to Lord Harshman? Rose suddenly replied that she had seen someone like that and went to the side of the bar. It was difficult to find someone in such a crowd, so she offered to help him voluntarily. Asking her new friend to wait a little, she headed towards the bar and complimented the bartender. She asked him to help her find a spot at the bar. The gentleman remarked that she must be an important person in Kant. There were a couple of important acquaintances, and he said, good people attract those of their own kind. But she couldn't agree. She didn't seem to be visible here, but if he wandered around, it would be even harder to find her. So Rose suggested they wait here while she sent someone to search. Then the girl asked the bartender to serve them 2 glasses and bring along some undiluted alcohol. Noticing a new drink, Harshman recognized it. They say many people want to try it. This is the newest product from the Baldwin Winery, and of course he tasted their drinks. Although for him they were too strong, they tasted very good. The girl drank with him, while he assured her that she would be lucky if she drank and didn't collapse. And she didn't quite understand what she needed from him. 30 minutes later, she almost fainted. Right at the bar counter. There were so many people here. It took time to find her. Rose offered him a carriage, but he refused, because he had come all this way to catch this thief. The girl shared that in Kant, there had also been a stir recently because of a thief. A girl invited to a tea party stole several things from other guests. She was a foreigner who had just arrived in the country. They immediately searched her and found stolen items in her dress. The man asked to describe her, and when he heard about the green-haired girl from Northland, he was so surprised that Leticia had to ask what she had lost because she was looking for this girl so insistently. The answer was even more terrifying. Frowning, he said he had lost his daughter's honor. The gentleman came here to catch her because she was the one who tried to seduce his daughter's husband. And now, how dare she come to Kant and cause trouble here? An acquaintance told him about this, and if he returns empty-handed, it will undoubtedly affect future daughters. Maybe he won't like her as a son-in-law, but his daughter chose him herself, and he cheated on her with several women, including this thief, and in the end she left the empire. It was clear to Rose that Lyanka had betrayed Olivia, and she probably wouldn't stand idly by. And she would try to reveal her secret, so the girl contacted Karl. She must have told him about her whereabouts and what she was capable of. And all this so that he can deal with Olivia. She thought about what to do next. Maybe it was better to sit and watch her enemies fight. But at that moment, their difference in strength was too obvious, and Olivia wouldn't last long. So the girl decided to let the man rest and go directly to Alyonka. Until now, she didn't know her weaknesses. But if she remains inactive, she will get rid of the enemy in front of her. So she needs to take the opportunity to help get rid of Olivia to learn more about her. The girl admitted that she returned with wine and snacks, but he was already gone. And Rose admitted that, unfortunately, the manager needed to talk to her. It seems she is as influential a person as everyone else here. It's just that this event was organized by one of her relatives. Lyanka finally showed up. She said she was from Northland and had never been to such large-scale events before. The girl couldn't believe she was involved in this. Great that he considers her an ally, because if they get close and start spending time together, someday she will definitely have the opportunity to take revenge. having put on the innocent face of a society lady, which she had only seen on others before. The girl smiled and said she was delighted to meet you. This way she could find out her main weaknesses. This blue-haired girl was surprised that the girl knew her, but she explained that she knew her as a Store Winchester's fiancé. He asked her to take care. What a coincidence, the ship was delayed and they couldn't see each other. It's hard to communicate across the border, so she didn't expect to know anything about him. However, travels are full of surprises. Having introduced herself once again, Rose Victoire noticed how much the girl wanted to befriend her. Because they met by chance. Well, since their friendship began, Lyanka offered to go wash the stain on the dress, pulling the girl's arm. She admitted that she would totally agree, but here someone is looking for her. A tall gentleman, over 50 years old, named Karl Harbschen. The girl's face changed and she expressed fear, but she calmly replied that she knew him and that they arrived together. To be honest, she already thought she wouldn't find him, so she decided to just enjoy the event. But thanks to her new friend, it seems they will meet. Glad that everything wasn't going according to Lyanka's plan, Rose took her hand in the other direction, and the girl had no choice but to walk. During the trip, she addressed her by name, although no one allowed it, and asked him, if she is so influential here, it means she knows many people. The girl was interested. Maybe she had already met a green-haired girl with golden eyes. She always dresses very impressively. Of course, she wanted to meet Olivia. Rose wasn't sure, because there are many people here. She even wanted to offer to search for her together. But suddenly, Olivia appeared out of nowhere, dressed in a man's beret and putting a knife to Lyanka's throat. Threatening to kill her, she told her to shut up and follow her. Otherwise, everything would go very badly. Rose was ordered to simply run away from here as fast as possible and not try to follow them. And luckily, there wasn't a soul at the bar. It seemed everyone had finished drinking and left. The girl was trying to find out the reason for what she was doing. After all, they were friends. However, Olivia clearly didn't consider her her friend. She lied blatantly. After betraying her, how low did she decide to fall? Lyanka tried to justify herself by saying that she was looking for him to fulfill her promise. But then she brought Lord Harshman with her for the loan. The girl in the yellow dress tried to convince Olivia to let her go. She pretended not to know why she was doing this, but asked to resolve everything through peaceful conversations. But the girl said nothing could be resolved. Like the injustice of her accusations at the tea party, did anyone hear you? She was about to explain that none of this was true and that there was no talk of any injustice. She was definitely stealing from others, but Olivia suddenly silenced the Countess and told her she didn't have time to talk to her. Putting a knife directly to Lyanka's throat, she threatened and ordered her to immediately tell her butler to bring all the jewels. And not a word about her. The poor girl suddenly asked. Michelle didn't explain anything to her. Lord Robin no longer wants anything to do with her. She tried to convince him several times, but it's impossible to convince a person who doesn't like you to go abroad so they could see each other. Olivia didn't believe anything, and she already brandished her dagger, because today this girl appeared with Lord Harshman, and she only wants to separate her from Robin. She was really ready to kill her until Michelle appeared. Lyanka immediately ran into Rose's arms, seeking peace in them like a small child. She was already starting to cry, because if it weren't for her friend, if she hadn't been there, she would probably have died. It's even curious, she saved the one who killed her. Of course, Rose comforted the girl. She is safe now. It would be nice if Olivia took care of this girl instead of her, but this would not be enough. She deserves a more painful death. The girl preferred to do it herself. While consoling each other and exchanging thoughts, they completely forgot about Michelle. At the very moment, the girls turned around. He abruptly and sharply thrust the sword directly into Olivia's heart. Right before their eyes, a murder occurred. Lyanka immediately shouted at him, subject, asking him why he did this. But he only admitted that he did it for my lady's sake. She threatened him, which means he had to die. The girl scolded him. She said it wasn't necessary, because he was stubborn, but she had confidence and stood her ground, because she herself wanted to get rid of the threat. Frightened, Lyanka immediately turned to her friend and asked how murderers were judged in Kant. What punishment would Michelle receive if there was a trial? Lowering her eyes to the ground due to her depressed state, the lady said that Lady Lyanka could avoid punishment by saying it was self-defense. But he couldn't do that. He would definitely be sentenced to death because he killed an aristocrat. Grabbing the yellow dress, the girl begged for help because she was an illegitimate daughter who had to survive and make her way in the Snow Eater family. Only Michael was nearby. He is like family to her, and she doesn't want to lose her family again. Although it wasn't clear why she was so worried about a certain butler, there were no easy ways to protect him after committing a crime. If someone reported what happened, then nothing could be resolved. But this will be a great opportunity for her. She will try to help her resolve everything as quietly as possible, with the help of her family's influence. Gently taking her by the chin, he asked if she understood him, and upon hearing a positive answer, she realized that this was a great opportunity to make Lyanka consider her a friend. Rose asked her to promise that even if everything didn't go according to the plan, she wouldn't be the one dragged into this, as if the girl had never been there, having thrown Olivia's body into a barrel directly into the bottom of the sea. And Rose stayed at night in the rain on a cliff in a raincoat, and remembered with what warm eyes Aster had asked her to take care of his girlfriend. She still didn't understand in whose hands she had entrusted his most valuable possession.